Hello and welcome. We are building an Android browser with the help of Mozilla's Android components, and I hope everyone has a coffee. I'll quickly show you the current state. So this is the browser we've built so far. There's a nice toolbar. We can navigate to a website and we can then navigate, click on links, whatever. And what we did last time is adding a tabs tray. So if I click on this little tab counter here, this is our current tabs tray. It's a navigation drawer, and we have this little plus button here to create a new tab. Let's go to the Verge, and now we have two tabs here. And the currently selected one is highlighted. We can close tabs, we can switch tabs. That is pretty nice. There are kind of three things that we identified last time that are missing to make this nicer. One is there's this white rectangle here in front of the tabs. We want to show a thumbnail that's showing the page. And then we want to have autocomplete in our toolbar at some point. Like if we go to the Verge again, you see there's no autocomplete. I need to type the whole URL, and that is annoying, especially when testing this app. So let's fix that. And then finally, if I close the whole thing, which is kind of buggy on this Android 11 emulator, but if I close this app and then launch it again, we have 0 tabs. So we do not persist anything to disk, and that is super awful for a browser. We definitely want to resume our session whenever we launch the app. So what do we start with? Maybe what I just showed, the session restore, how we call it. To recap, we use Android components from Mozilla. So Firefox for Android, the new one, is built from a bunch of components that are independent that you can use to build something like a browser by picking the things you want and replacing the things you don't want. And we used a bunch of them in the past, and now we continue to use one that gives us the session restore. And I think we actually might have already imported all the things we need. Let's take a look at our core components module. So we decided to use Debugger to manage our dependencies, our singletons mostly. And at some point here, we create a session manager. Session manager is the legacy thing that knows about all the tabs in the browser. The new thing is this browser store you can see over here. We are in between migrating from session manager to browser store. So at the moment, there are two things that are in sync that both give you the current state of the browser, like which tabs are open and so on. So what we need to do is to have a mechanism that looks for things in session manager, and whenever there are changes, saves them to disk. And there is a nice mechanism for that. First, we need something that is called session storage, I think. So let's create a provide method for that. Session storage provides, and it's also singleton. So this is the thing we save state to and we get state from on startup. And let's see, does this thing need anything in the constructor? I guess at least the context, yeah. And can pass this in. The application object is right here. And then the engine, so the browser engine. By the way, we are using Geckoview. That's Mozilla's browser engine, Gecko, that also powers Firefox, and it's wrapped as a Android library that you can use in an app instead of WebView. WebView is also a great choice if you need something that is already on your Android system, so for smaller apps probably. If you want to build something that makes use of all the awesome features of the web, and you need something more powerful, and Geckoview gives you that. So we want to build a browser, we need a lot of things from the engine, so we use Geckoview here and not WebView. Okay, that's in the engine. Okay, so now we have a storage. Now we need to use it. So when creating this session manager, then we first want to set up saving, and there's a class called Autosave. You pass in the session manager, the storage. We need to pass this in here. And anything else? No. Oh, there's a question. What are you using to render the HTML? I mentioned it already. I'm not sure if I maybe didn't see your message, but I will repeat it and also show the website. They're using Geckoview. Let me actually post this into the... So Geckoview is the Gecko engine from Mozilla wrapped as an Android library. That's what we are using for rendering. Has great features that we want. I give you two examples. One is that rendering a session, let's say a tab in a browser. With WebView, you always need a WebView and you need to somehow add this to your activity or whatever. In Geckoview, you can have those sessions and they are independent from any views. So you can have multiple sessions open that are loading different websites. And then you can decide which one to render on a view or not use a view at all. So that's pretty great if you want to build something like a browser, because even if the app is in background, you still want your tabs around independently from having any views still existing. And the second one is Geckoview supports features like web extensions. So you can load add-ons into your application, like uBlock for ad blocking, for example. And that's pretty awesome if you want to extend what your browser does by using those extensions. And the other thing we use is Android components. A bunch of pieces like the toolbar you saw, the tabs tray, those are all components that you can use or not use if you want to do something else. And yeah, they also abstract the engine away. So if you want to use Geckoview and the components, we abstract the engine away, and you can also use WebView or Geckoview. Depends on what your use case is. But again, we are building a browser. We want Geckoview with all the power the web gives us. So this Autosave class that we create here has some, it's kind of a builder. You can tell it in which situation it should save. And I probably think we want all of them. When sessions change, so whenever we, for example, add a tab, then let's immediately save it to this, because if the app crashes and the user restarts the app, we want this new tab to still be there. So that's a good thing. And going to the background is probably also a good thing. Like if I put the app into the background, Android can at any point kill the app. And so this is a good point in time where we say, okay, let's save this to disk, and if we get killed, it doesn't matter, because we still have this last state when the user put us into the background. And then there's also this periodically, oh god, complicated word for German. in foreground. So whenever the app is in the foreground, we can have an interval and then save at a given time. And looks like by default it's every 300 seconds, which is, I guess, 5 minutes. I think that probably sounds fine for us now. Okay, is this everything we need to do? I need to check the code. I don't remember if this is enough. Yeah, that should be enough, I think. Yeah. Okay, so now we already automatically will save to disk. We need the opposite. We also need to restore. So let's do this too. And for that, we ask the storage to restore, which will give us a snapshot. It's nullable because, well, a snapshot might not be available if there's nothing on disk. And then I think we can just pass this into the session manager with calling restore on it. Why is it complaining? Oh, because, yeah, it can be null. So we only want to do this if it's null. So if it's not null, sorry. Let's rewrite this a little bit. Let restore it. It looks better. There's something red here. Does it need more? It needs an interval. Why that? What is this minimum interval used for? Oh, I see. I'm surprised there's no default. There probably should be a default. For some kind of reason, we need to provide it. So whenever good things happen, like sessions change, things are going, the app is going to the background, or whenever this timer runs out, we save to disk. Changes, like we load different URLs, we're closing tabs, can happen quite often. And sometimes, if there are too many of those events queuing up, we don't want to save to disk. There's a situation where we can wait a couple of seconds and then save again, and then basically queue all those events up and then only save once. And I'm surprised there's no minimum provided by us in this component, but it looks like we need to provide it right now. So let's say 5 seconds. For this example app, it doesn't matter that much, but we can check what Firefox uses here and then later use this too. So let's try this. Yeah, whenever any of you has a question, I'm happy to stop at any time and answer your question. So please just put them into the chat. Okay, so here's our browser. Let's navigate to mozilla.org. And let's also open a shell. Shell. If we open the log, we actually should see the save events happening, I think. And meantime, I will open another tab. Let's go to the search again. Let's see. can't see anything in the log. Let's filter by autosave. Log is pretty slow. Okay. I don't see any save events in the log. Let's remove the filter. Maybe I filter by the wrong tag. In the meantime, I guess we could just try step into the background and then let's kill it. And then let's launch it again. It definitely worked. Here's the watch again. We see the tab counters at 2. Here's the other tab. Switch to mozilla.org as well. And looks pretty good. Let's see if we can see it happening in the log too. See if I open a tab, I probably should see something, but that's just too much happening here. But let's go to Wikipedia. Okay, let's kill the app. Go away. Let's make sure it's actually force close and it's really gone. Stop. Okay. Well, let's launch it again. Yeah, and here our tab counters had 3. We are back on Wikipedia. Awesome. So that is already working. And I think we can commit this. Let's look at the change. Super small. We added a provides method that gives us a session storage. And then we changed the session manager code to restore from the storage and set up autosave to save whenever we think it's time to save. Let's commit this. Restore last state on app launch. And you want to follow along, see the code. This is the repository. The browser is currently called IceAnt. I will also drop this to the channel. All right, so let's do the next thing. I mentioned thumbnails. So currently there's only this white rectangle here. It would be pretty awesome if you could see a preview of the page. Let's try doing this. And last time we wrote this little tabs tray thing, or actually this tabs tray integration class. And it uses the tabs tray component from Android Components. So the only thing we needed to do is we added this drawer to the layout. We dropped tabs tray component into it. We defined how it should look like a tab, and we added this plus button here at the top. Not super nice, but it works. So now let's see how we can add the thumbnail. So last time we already stumbled upon this value here where we just set null. It requires this view holder. It asks you for an optional thumbnail loader. And if I remember correctly, this was provided by one of the components. There is some, it's not listed here, but I'm pretty sure there is a support component. Support images. So the support group of components, those are not full component that provide you full featured thing like a toolbar. They are more providing you helpers that you can use to do something specific. Support images contains things to deal with images. Like in our case, we want to load images. So let's add this to our list of dependencies. Oh, it's already there. Support images, perfect. And we are using an outdated version of the components. We were using a nightly version, so we should update to the latest version at some point later, not right now. But since there is already this class, I think we can create, yeah, an image loader here. And the image loader needs, what does it need? Oh, this is the interface. We want thumbnails. Let's go back to the components. There is a component, browser thumbnails. So specifically for a browser, because we want thumbnails of websites. And under the hood, Geckoview has methods where we can say, make a thumbnail from this website. In the components, we have the store that has a state for all the tabs, and if you set it up correctly, for every tab we will get a thumbnail automatically, and we do not need to care where it's coming from. It's not our responsibility to go to Geckoview all the time and say, okay, now please create a new thumbnail. Okay, this is for this tab. Remember this here. So the component will do all of that for us. So let's drop in this. Browser thumbnails. And we ask Gradle to refresh and some more coffee. Okay. Now we should be able to have a thumbnail loader here. And this one needs a storage. So let's go back to the place where we create all the things for Dagger, or where we tell Dagger how to create all the things. Let's tell it how to create thumbnail storage. And it needs a context. Does it need anything else? A job dispatcher? No, we don't want to customize this. Okay. So back to our integration class. We pass in the thumbnail storage. And give it to the loader. Oh yeah, we need to turn this into property. And now we have set up the view holder to know where to load those images from. But we need to first get images into the storage. And I think the right way to do this is to go back to our components. So we have the browser store here, and it's like in Redux, a store that has an immutable state that you can observe, and you dispatch actions on the store that will modify the state and then notify everyone about the new state. And there's a mechanism called middleware where all the actions coming in the middleware will see them before they get in and after they get the new state get out. And the middleware can intercept those or can do additional things. And that's exactly what we want to do here. Like whenever we load a page, for example, there will be an action coming into the store, changing the state, like different URL or whatever. And this middleware can react to this and say, okay, let's load a thumbnail for that. And that's what we want to do here, I think. There is this thumbnails middleware. And we can pass in the storage to that. Okay. Let's see if this is working. I'm not sure if this is everything we need. That's all I remember. Okay, no value passing. We added this to our tabs tray integration, but we don't pass it in yet. So let's go up here. We tell Debugger to inject a thumbnail storage. And then we have a reference here that we just can pass into our integration class, and now everything should be set up. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please just put them into the chat and we'll stop at any time and explain what I'm doing or answer questions about project, the components, whatever. Code. Okay, this looks like an interesting problem from Debugger. Missing binding for thumbnail storage. Did we do anything wrong here? This one provides thumbnail storage. Make sure we pick the correct class. Thumbnail storage, thumbnail storage. Let's go to our fragment. Thumbnail storage. Yeah, that looks like it's the same class, so what went wrong here? Thumbnail storage cannot be provided without an inject constructor or an provides annotated method. But isn't that what actually, that's what we did, right? Let's check again, provides. Let's run again. But I assume we see the same error again. Right, so far it's building. Okay, it is working, so that was, I don't know what it was. See. This is emulator just slow right now. take another look at the log. Okay, now it's doing something. It's loading. We are back at Wikipedia. Switch a tab. We are at Word. Okay, we do not see any images just yet. So maybe we are missing some important piece. Let's open a new tab to be sure. And let's go to root website. Let's go to DuckDuckGo. Yeah, that is not working. Let's try to figure out why it's not working. We added the storage, we added the middleware. What we could do is look at another project. And that is reference browser. So reference browser is a vanilla browser built from those components as well. And we can take a look if we maybe missed something, because this one also uses the thumbnail storage. Let's see. Here. This is the middleware. That's what we did too. This is a loader with the storage. And it's passed into the view holder. It looks exactly like the code we wrote to. Let's see. We just search for thumbnail. Is there something else we are missing? No, that looks exactly like what we did too. Let's do another check. Let's go to GitHub, Mozilla, mobile /Phoenix. Did I mistype? Yeah, there's an L missing. Let's go to Phoenix. So Phoenix is Firefox for Android, the new one, which is also using our components. So let's see, thumbnail. Have the loader here. Okay, this one is using custom code. Let's take a look at the things. We have the middleware here. That's what we did too. What is this? This is the adapter where we pass in the thumbnail loader. That's what we do too. On first sight, it looks like what we did too. Let's take a peek into the adapter, what the adapter does. Oh, yeah. This one looks wrong. We didn't pass in the loader to the adapter. We only pass it into the holder. I'm not sure why there are two. Why does the holder and the adapter need a loader? But maybe we will find out. Let's see if this works. Okay, here's DuckDuckGo. Still no image though. Nope. Let's test one more time by opening a new tab. And what's a good test page? Let's go to Google News. No, that was not good enough apparently. Close some of those tabs. Okay, we wanted to look into the adapter to see if the issue is inside the adapter. So let's click on to the adapter. We pass in now the loader. Yeah, we pass in the loader. And on bind view holder, it calls bind on the tab view holder. And we use the default, I think the default, let's go back. Default tab view holder. We call bind. Oh yeah, so if there is a thumbnail loader and there's a thumbnail, then it will load it into the view. So there are probably two reasons. Maybe we don't have a thumbnail here. Or maybe our middleware is not doing the right thing. Let's test with the debugger and see what we get if we wait here. And see if we get, if you have a loader here and if we have a thumbnail. Okay, here we are. Oh, this is still a breakpoint from last time. This not the breakpoint we are interested in. Download feature, yeah, this is okay here. Thumbnail loader. We have a tab, and the tab does not have a thumbnail, which right now might be fine because there's nothing loaded. And let's click on a link. Oof. This emulator is super slow. Let's try Wikipedia. Let's see if we run into this again. Here we are. So we still don't have a thumbnail. Okay. And here we are again. Still no thumbnail. That's it. So let's navigate to a different page. Here we are again. No thumbnail. And still no thumbnail. That's it. And that's why it's white. Okay. So let's go to the core component, and let's look into the middleware. The middleware should be responsible for the thumbnails, I guess. Let's see. When it gets an update, it saves it to the storage. When it gets removed, and then it removes them. Okay. What's interesting on first sight is no one is actually taking the thumbnails. So we are missing an important piece here. So let's see who invokes update thumbnail action. First, let's look in the Android components. If there's something in Android components that is supposed to do this. Let's only look at Kotlin code. Okay, here's a call to update thumbnail action. Browser thumbnails. This is definitely a thing we have not integrated yet. So this is probably the missing piece. Let's see where this is used. Okay, so this is used in the browser, which kind of makes sense because what I actually mentioned earlier is whenever we need a thumbnail, under the hood, we need to ask Geckoview, please create a thumbnail of the website you are currently displaying. So, which means you need to call something on the view. And we can only do this inside the fragment because that's where the view is. The middleware somewhere in the store can't actually ask the view. It doesn't know about any views. And so let's do this in a fragment. And I assume all we need to do is to just drop in this feature. Yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's go to our browser fragment. Here we have already a bunch of things. Let's add the feature 2. Thumbnails feature. We create a view-bound feature wrapper. I mentioned this before. This thing makes sure that we do not leak any references to views. Now let's set the instance. Thumbnails feature set. Needs a context. Needs the engine view. That's the thing it actually needs to ask to create the thumbnail. Where is... Should have a reference to this view here somewhere. Where is it? Here is it. You may notice we still have a ton of find view by ID call. Let's see here. That is something to eventually make nicer. Okay, so the owner, this is this fragment, and then the view. What's happening under the hood, this wrapper that we created, whenever this view gets detached, it will take care of also clearing the reference to this feature, because the feature also has references to the views, and if the fragment has a reference to the feature and the feature to the views, it means as long as the fragment around, we will always have a reference to the view, and that might be wrong if the fragment is detached. And let's pass in a store. Okay. One more test. Let's deploy this. And wow, it crashed immediately. So let's figure out what went wrong. There's something obvious here. Still updating. Let's get a lock, deploy again. Okay. I'm not sure what this was, but now it's just loading the page. Open the tabs tray, and there is the thumbnail. Woo, made it. Let's test with a new page, theverge.com. Let's wait for the page to load. And let's go to the tabs tray. And yeah, we have thumbnails. Ooh. Let's look at the code and then commit it. So we added the browser thumbnails component. We added a thumbnail storage. We just set up the feature that takes care of taking thumbnails. Then we pass in a thumbnail loader to our adapter and view holder now so that the tabs tray can display the thumbnails. And then we added the middleware that will take care of saving all the thumbnails to disk when needed. All right, let's commit this as well. Add thumbnails to tabs tray. All right, so there was one last thing we talked about, and that is autocomplete. That is whenever I type here Wikipedia, I need to type the whole URL. There's no autocomplete, and there are multiple sources for autocomplete. We could autocomplete from history, like if I visited wikipedia.org before, and we want to autocomplete it again the next time I type it. Or, and that's what we are going to do now, is use a list of popular domains, and we will use this list to autocomplete whatever you type. So that is pretty nice in a browser where you're using it for the first time. There's no history you can autocomplete from. So we are using a list of default domains. And surprise, surprise, there is a component that gives us exactly this list. This is a browser domains. Browser domains, let's quickly look into it, into the assets, has a list of popular domains. Like this is the global list. And then there are also local ones, like this, for example, is the list for the US. And we will use this list to autocomplete. And we are using the device local to maybe use a local list if there's one. So let's go back to, add browser domains. Sync, and for coffee. And now we go back to the toolbar integration class. That is where we've put all the code that sets up the toolbar. And now let's see, we need to toolbar dot edit dot see, it's on here. Was it on the toolbar itself? Can't remember. Set autocomplete listener. That sounds good. Let's see, I never remember what this looks like. Registers the given function to be invoked when users change text in the toolbar. Okay, so we get in the text and the autocomplete delegate. Let's quickly check on a delegate. We can apply an autocomplete or say we don't have any. And now I need to cheat basically and look at reference browser again, because I never am able to remember the exact setup. App. And then we need to go, let's look into the browser, and there's also a toolbar class. Oh yeah, first we need to set up this provider. We will do this in a second. And then, oh, there's actually a feature. So I might have mentioned this in other streams before. There's those feature classes that exist in some component know how to connect different components together. For example, whenever I type into the toolbar, I want to load something here. If I load a website here, I want to update the toolbar, and this code is always the same. That connects those two things, and we wrap this as feature components, so you can just use the feature and the feature will do it for you. It looks like we can do this here too. So let's start by creating the provider, domain provider. Private val domain provider shipped domains provider, and that's the thing we got from the component we included, the browser domains component. And then we initialize it with the context, because it needs to load all those domains from disk once. And then we toolbar autocomplete feature, set up the feature. It's the toolbar, and it needs the engine. Let's see. Pass this in, I think. And then we need to add the domain provider. Add domain provider, and we already created this at the top, and that might be enough. Let's double check. Yeah, that's what we do here too. Deploy this. Okay. Of course, if we ask for the engine, we also need to pass it in here. We don't have it here yet, so let's inject it, late in it, var engine. Let's try again. Let's wait for Gradle. Okay, here's the app. This emulator is terribly slow. Alright, here it is. Let's wait until it loaded Wikipedia. Okay, now let's start typing into the toolbar. Let's see if it works. Yeah, the Guardian. We never visited the Guardian, but it auto-completed it. And let's try monster.com, and if I add a Z, mozilla.org. Awesome. A quick thing we could do is change the color here. You can see it is, I don't know, the default pink maybe, or purple. It doesn't match the colors we use, so maybe we want to use the same color as the cursor highlight. So let's try that quickly. There is this, let's see, integration class. There's this colors class that we copy here, and I think there's a property. Yeah, here, suggestion foreground and suggestion background. So the foreground, I think, can still be white, maybe. Test this out. And the background, we use our cyan color. Let's see, what's the name of this? Teal 200. Okay, let's see how this looks like. Better. It is pretty bright, I think. Not sure if it's the best choice. Maybe we could, is there a lighter version of that? Maybe the lighter version we use as the URL background. Let's quickly check. No, not this one. This one. This is purple 500. Let's try purple 500. Okay. That is maybe too subtle. You know what? Let's change it back to teal 200, and that's it for now. We might need to think about the colors in general at some point. Teal 200 is at least more obvious than the only subtle purple difference. So let's look at the code again. We added the browser domains component that gives us lists of domains. Then we created a domains provider. This class will load the lists for us and take care of loading the right lists. We do not need to care about this. Then we created a toolbar autocomplete feature and told it to use this provider to autocomplete. Pretty simple, actually. So let's commit this. Autocomplete from list of popular domains. Let's push this. All right. I think that's the 3 things we wanted to do today. We added autocomplete. That was just the last thing we did. And we added thumbnails to our tabs tray. It's already looking much nicer. And we added session restore whenever we kill the app and relaunch the app. That was a kind of weird emulator glitch. Did we? When we relaunch the app, it will launch again with the tabs we had open last time. So our browser is already much more usable than it was an hour ago, I think. So, again, if you want to look at the code, it is in this repository. The browser is currently called IceAnt. If you're interested in adding specific features or trying things with the browser, just open an issue in this repository and I'm happy to adapt and show you things you're interested in. So thank you very much for watching and I hope to see you in the next stream. Please follow if you haven't. Bye bye.